All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another weekend of LSR League racing action. This week, or today, of course, being a nice, bright, sunny Sunday afternoon here at Silverstone for round 5 of Group 2. Of course, we did have a brief hiatus of stream last week as I was out of town enjoying a nice little vacation for myself. But of course, now we got one of the best tracks on the calendar to be able to experience as a bunch of drivers start making their way out of the pits for round 5 here in Group 2. As you know, as regular, of course, your host, Vacant Haddock. Of course, you see me in Group 1 as well as one of the admins over here. And we got a nice big 18-car group for today's race. Hopefully we're not buffering too badly. Oh, no, we're good. We just buffered on my end. So, are we okay? Hold on, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not having technical difficulties. Because I am, a little bit. But yeah, it looks like we're all good. So she'll be all set to continue. Yeah, should be a very interesting race. And of course, Silverstone, one of the oldest tracks on the calendar. It should provide some great racing. Had a bunch of tight battling yesterday in Group 1. That race is, of course, won by Tano, or Yuki. But very high speed, not a lot of slow corners, so we're going to see most of those passes come likely in those DRS zones, as Guardian Knight already retiring from the session. He may have had an issue in the pit lane. We could be also expecting up to 2 more drivers join the session. They'll stay on board with Viperize in the number 7 Aston Martin as he comes down the Hamilton Straight in order to start the lap. And of course, turns 1 and 2 very quick. Probably quickest to take turn 1 in 7th gear in most instances. This is, you do lose a little bit of revs as you make your way through that little chicane into the first braking zone of turn number 3. Of course, turn 4 and 5, really important to get that exit right as you head into one of the 2 DRS zones on the circuit. And of course, high speed definitely needed in Sector 1. Again, probably where we're going to see the most overtakes. Into turn number 6, it's 27.8 for Viperize through that first sector. Williams diving out of the way, and so through 8 and 9. They got the kink of 10 down the old pit straight and the run into Cops. Of course, easy flat with almost every setup that we'll see run today. Track limits could be a bit of a concern, especially as tire wear becomes more and more a factor. But into the S's of Maggots and Beckett's, very much want to be single file through here as you're going to lose loads of time otherwise, but really nail that exit 103.6 through the first 2 sectors for Viperize as he heads into DRS zone number 2 and into the final couple of corners now. Of course, when I get down to 6, you can really just take engine braking through that turn as you come into the final couple of corners. Not a bad overtaking spot there to make a late move under the brakes or finish a move from earlier corners, but here comes Viperize to the line, and his first lap of qualifying will be a 127.4. So that's everybody's target for the moment. Breakfast King and Oreo African coming to the end of their laps with McLaren's, and then a Red Bull as well. Just behind that is Alcoholic coming to the line. Oreo with a 138. Husky, Alcoholic Husky with a 128.3. Breakfast King also with a 128.3, but slots in just behind Alcoholic. Alec in P2 on track. Here comes Husky Gaming, the Kick Sauber, and that fluoro green coming around the final corner. He'll jump up ahead of Husky. He'll get a 3/10 gap to the car behind. Semi Yildiz, meanwhile, will immediately jump up ahead of him as well. It's 127.8. I believe it's it's the V-Carb of Detchall coming to the line next. That lap time second on track, 2/10 back of Viperize as R-Stratting starts a lap behind him. The other V-Carb of JDM Tay coming to the line. That lap good enough for 7th as it stands. So 128.864. So definitely comfortable from him on what I believe may be his debut. Rostamol slots in behind him with a 129.2. Strakasaur, meanwhile, 104.2 through the first 2 sectors and a bit of a front-left lockup going into that final braking zone. And, of course, very important to get that traction zone right in the Mercedes home race. That lap time good enough for 4th, though, despite that lockup. So very comfortable and behind his teammates. So the Mercedes moving quickly in the opening stages. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, getting set. He's on an out lap, so we'll jump through the order, see if there's anybody on a bit of a push lap. Doesn't seem to be anybody at the moment. Breakfast King may be setting up for another push lap, as would his teammate of Oreo Hafkin, who's actually going to spin out and go to the wall. That's Oreo losing it under traction, so he will not be able to improve that time. So a big mistake there from Oreo in this qualifying session, so he'll start likely second to last after Guardian Knight retired in the pits. So definitely a big loss there from him. Of course, DeChal down. I don't believe that wouldn't be anybody on the lap except for potentially Breakfast King, who's come up to that first timing marker, slightly down through Sector 1. As Stratting goes fourth quickest, splitting the two Mercedes drivers. So it's looking to be a Mercedes versus Aston Martin battle at the front in the early stages of this qualifying session. Of course, one session and then a 50% race to come. Big slide there from Breakfast King through Cops, almost losing that and probably going to lose a decent chunk of time as well. So perhaps tire temp's going to be an issue for that McLaren as we continue. Of course, here comes Breakfast King out on the straight, down a 10th as he comes down this straight. Will he pick up any time through these final couple of corners? Much more composed there than through Cops, and will at least come to the line. So we'll stay on board with the McLaren as he comes to the line. Formula Jonah slots in behind him. That's a 128.4 for him. Breakfast King to the line. That's good enough for a slight improvement, actually. So 128.360 from Breakfast King currently slots him in 8th. Yigits, meanwhile, he invalidated that lap, so he still does not have a lap. Speedy Gunner, meanwhile, through the first sector at 27.8. So the Red Bull looking fairly comfortable. Of course, we're coming on in Maggots and Beckett's, so who knows if there was a mistake earlier on in that lap. 103.7 through sectors 1 and 2 for the Red Bull driver, though. So seemingly very comfortable. And so here he comes through the final couple of corners now. Of course, one braking zone and one traction zone to go. So what does Speedy Gunner have in the tank? A little bit of a slide of that rear end, getting on the power, going to attack that curb. That lap time good enough for third. So 127.801 for Speedy Gunner. So very respectable. So it's Viperized, DeChal, and Speedy Gunner here in the early stages of qualifying. R-Stratting, meanwhile, he's on a big push lap. He's picked up 3/10, so a big mistake in the early part of the lap for the Dutchman. Of course, making his way onto that back straight now. You really want to try to utilize as much track as you can. Really try and make sure you hold on to that speed. I believe there's a Williams off track. Is that Yigit? Is he may be... No, he was just holding off. Didn't know if he was beached or not. So we'll jump back to Stratting for when he comes out of Maggots and Beckett's. It was up almost 3 or 4 tenths coming through Sector 1. He's up 6 tenths through Sector 2. So Stratting with loads of pace and looking to take the fight to his teammate for provisional pole with 9 minutes left to go in the qualifying session. So here it comes now down into the spot where Lewis Hamilton made that double overtake. Out of the final corner now, really utilizing all those track limits on the far left side. Gets on the power very cleanly and jumps right up to the top of the order. It's a 127.3 from Stratting as he takes provisional pole away from Viperize. Husky, meanwhile, nobody else really on a push lap. You get on an in-lap. M. Requiem, 28.1 through the first sector, so not super quick. Ozan as well, who we saw in Group 1 yesterday, certainly looking to try and get a competitive lap time on the board. We got Husky Gaming diving into the pits, but our top 3 all technically on a lap right now. Viperize making his way through the first couple of corners, followed close behind by DeChal, so we keep an eye on the top 2 as they hit that first sector timing markers. Good exit there from Viperize. Can DeChal copy that? Yes, he will. So both cars getting a really solid exit. Of course, Viperize needs a 10th. DeChal needs 2. Viperize found it in that first sector. He's up 1.3, which as of right now wouldn't quite be enough to jump ahead of his teammate, but it would just be by fractions of a second. DeChal, meanwhile, I forgot to switch back, so we'll have to see where he clocks in, though he seems a little bit further behind that Aston Martin than when he started the lap. But good through Copse for Viperize. Same thing for DeChal, but also really utilizing the extent of the track limits. So here comes Viperize now. Maggots and Beckett's very clean, looking to keep that car under control. He will nicely, and so here comes that Aston Martin up 0.3 as he hits that second timing marker. DeChal, meanwhile, only up a 10th and change, so he's going to need to find a lot of time in this final sector. So here comes Viperize up over the hill into this really the only very slow section of the racetrack, aside from turns 3 through 5. So can Viperize jump back up ahead of his teammate, the Aston Martin, to the line, and he'll fairly comfortably take provisional pole. DeChal, meanwhile, managed to pull out a lot of time in that final sector. He jumps ahead of our Stratting by 100th. And so it's now Viperize, DeChal, Stratting after the second runs of qualifying. Semi Yildiz, meanwhile, he was up 0.2 early through Sector 2. Can he find any more time? He'll find a quarter of a second, so that's enough time to put him ahead of Speedy Gunner. Ozan, meanwhile, while we were on board with Viperize and DeChal, managed to slot into P7. And then, of course, Yiget and Kendricks still without laps as it stands. 6 minutes left to go. So plenty of time to have a chance at getting an extra lap in. Strakasaur currently sits 6th. Of course, Ozan going to be trying to make his way back around. Alcoholic Husky on his last lap gaining 0.3, about matching that time through the first sector. So we'll see if he can improve. Of course, Ozan not very far ahead. Only, Alcoholic Husky less than a 10th behind. So let's see how that goes. Also, Husky Gaming in there as well. JDM Tay picking up 0.6. He's jumped up into the top 10. And of course, Rostamol getting underway with a lap as well, being the last of the drivers with a lap. And not out of the session. Kendricks slots in P13 with his first lap of the session. Alcoholic through 2 sectors, about matching his first 2 lap times. So we'll see if he can pick up anything towards the end of this lap, or if this is just a push to get back round. He will go ahead and finish that lap. Should be enough time for him to get a final lap in. Of course, got to throw that car all the way back to the right. How much time did he gain in the final sector? Only half a 10th, so not quite enough to catch Ozan, but certainly enough to close that gap. And comfortable from him right now. Strakasaur invalidated likely at that final corner. Speedy Gunner, meanwhile, on a push lap, he currently sits 5th, but lost a 10th in that first sector. So, of course, not going to be the start to the lap that he wanted. And very loose out of that little section. He's going to run all the way out to the grass and still going to manage to hold on to that Red Bull. But, of course, the pairing currently sit 5th and 8th, so not a bad start to the day from the Red Bull team. Let's see, he's going to just cut across the track, stay out of the way of, I believe that is a Williams, and he's actually almost going to spin. That is Yiget behind him, who is only on an out lap as well. Of course, we got all 18 drivers, or 16 remaining, I should say, looking to get back around and get set back up to get underway. And we got our first couple of drivers coming out. Kendricks managed to jump up into the top 10. Picked up 0.7 on his previous lap. We'll see if he has any more laps in the tank. His teammate of Ozan, meanwhile, looking to get an out lap in, as is Breakfast King in the McLaren. So could these two drivers potentially be looking at a double out lap here, as we got our first chunk of drivers coming out of the pits? Of course, yellows in all sectors, though I believe that's mainly for fuel, as we hit 3 minutes, 20 seconds left to go in the session. But yeah, Ozan and Breakfast King certainly could have a chance at getting, having 2 outlaps before they fully push, perhaps in an effort to get those tires a bit more into a comfortable window where they, be all set. Kendricks, meanwhile, is out of fuel, so that's likely his qualifying session over. Of course, he will stay out of the way of everybody else, as you got bunch of drivers behind setting up. But yeah, Ozan will be the first to have a chance at setting a final flying lap. Of course, our current leader of Viperize and Dachal now pulling out the pits with 2.5 minutes left to go. But Ozan and Breakfast King should have 2 shots at this. So we'll stay on board with the lead driver right now in Ozan as he comes across to start his final stint for qualifying. Of course, car coming out of the pit lane. I believe that is that almost came very tight. That was, I believe, the Williams of M Requiem just coming out of the pits. Bit of poor timing there. But Ozan fairly comfortable coming out of that first complex. Of course, DRS wide open at the back of his car, and as he comes up to that first sector timing marker, he is down 0.5 tenth. But of course, still should have a little bit of time in order to try and get a better lap in. Breakfast King, meanwhile, up 1.5 tenths early. He's going to have to find a little bit more if he wants to pick up any more positions on that grid. Meanwhile, Ozan up ahead, coming now into Cops as a number of drivers now getting laps underway. 1 minute and 26 seconds left to go in qualifying. So if you're in the pit lane, that is probably your qualifying session over. So that's Rostamol, Kendricks, and Semi Yildiz, who all should not improve. Ozan, meanwhile, up about 0.3 tenths as he makes his way through that second sector timing marker. Jumping back to Breakfast King, he's up about 0.3 tenths as well. So how much time can they find in these final couple of corners? Both drivers pushing very hard, trying to get those final laps in. Of course, here comes Ozan out of the final corner. He currently sits 7th. Where can he jump to? He can jump up to 4th as it stands. Breakfast King, meanwhile, he'll follow and be the second driver to set his final lap time. He'll jump up into 7th, so just behind Speedy Gunner, so a good improvement there from Breakfast King. Meanwhile, I believe that is our Stratton getting set on an out lap. He'll get underway with just, I believe, a couple of seconds left to go now. So he'll get underway, so Stratton will get a lap in. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, he was up 1 tenth and change. Well, he will have enough time to get another push lap, but we got a bunch of drivers looking to get a final laps in. Alcoholic Husky should have this timed right. Strakosaur should have this timed right. He's going to give a little bit more space to the cars ahead. Husky Gaming should be the last car around to set a final lap, so we'll keep an eye on those 4 as a decent bit of traffic as well. Dachal, can he take the fight to Viperize at all? He was down about 0.5 tenth through those first 2 sectors, coming in to these final couple of corners where he pulled up a lot of time on his previous lap. Can he match that? No, he's going to clobber that inside sausage curve on that first right-hander. So Dachal will start no better than second, so still a very good lap time from the V-Carb driver, but that opens the door for the likes of Stratting and Viperize to potentially improve. Viperize doesn't think he'll improve, so he'll dive into the pits. He will not improve. So what will the Red Bull of Speedy Gunner do as he comes around the final couple of corners to the line? Stratting is out of the session, so he'll not improve. Speedy Gunner improves to 5th. Breakfast King seemingly out of fuel, so he will not improve. So it comes down to the 4 at the back. Formula Jonah up about 2 tenths through the first sector. He's up over 4 tenths through sector 2. So how much? So he's looking to put a time into the 127s. The question is, where does he slot in, and where do the drivers behind him slot in? So the LSR founder and Kick Sauer driver into the final couple of corners now. Of course, currently sits in P13. Here he comes to the line. Can Formula Jonah jump up the board at all? He'll jump up all the way to P9. Husky to the line next. He'll start 7th as it stands. It's the Mercedes of Strakosaur coming across the line to finish 5th. What about Husky Gaming? He invalidated. So that will be the end of qualifying. So it'll be Viperize on pole for the British Grand Prix. And it's shaping up to be a very interesting race as that midfield is incredibly tight. So we'll have to see how it goes. But 1.5 in it between the top 3, and then of course the top 13 separated by right about a second. So should be a very interesting watch today. Of course, definitely keep an eye on the likes of Oreo African and Guardian Knight starting towards the back, not really having a very competitive lap time on the board. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's very difficult to pull away without DRS assistance. So expect to see a lot of pack racing in the race today, as it should be very, very interesting. I've also got to make sure that I don't run out of breath before the end of this race, so I'm actually going to get myself a little... Actually, I'm going to get myself some juice, since we got a little bit of time. Of course, as we're waiting and drivers are getting their strategies set for today's action, definitely be sure to go down below and hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It helps us grow the channel, helps us grow the league, especially if you're first time and interested in league racing. Definitely be sure to let us know in the comments section down below. That would be very much appreciated. Always looking to continue to grow the league, as we're also looking to get Gran Turismo action up and going relatively shortly. Not sure if there's going to be streams for that as of just yet. As actually, Viperize just let me know we have hit 200 subscribers as well on the LSR channel here. So, of course, thank you to everybody who has subscribed and has viewed very consistently. It's a very big milestone to hit. So, I know we're all very happy to be at that point. As one light and we get underway for the formation lap, that does give us a chance to look at a couple of things before we get underway. Mediums seem to be the big pick of that top five. Strachosaur, of course, the one going for a bit of an alternate strategy in that group. But mediums to softs, certainly possible here around Silverstone, as a tire wear, especially over a 50% race distance, is not very high. So that's certainly something that you can make work. But, of top six, only Strachosaur opting for those softs from the John, Rostamol, and Oreo. Also opting for that tougher compounded tire. Only one hard tire runner in the V-Carb of JDM Tay down there in P13. So potentially looking to play that long game, maybe try and play for that late safety car, hold those softer compounds till the end of the race. Or potentially, if there is an early safety car, making that switch to the medium compound and being able to go the distance. But for most of the grid, soft tires seem to be the way to go. Make sure they have that tire temperature at the start of the race and get right underway. So, of course, it'll be very interesting. And there's your possible race strategies from AWS. Lap 12 to 18 is when we can expect both that soft and medium tire window to open. I'd expect to see a lot of drivers, look for that tire change at around lap 13, whether they're on the softs or the mediums, as you're going to want to really try to maximize the amount of time you're on those softs, and 13 laps probably the limit. Big little bit of a drift there from the Mercedes of, I believe that was Semi Yildiz, though I'm not entirely certain. We do have a Red Bull looking to almost briefly dive into the pit lane. I believe that was either Alcoholic or Speedy Gunner. Looking to have a little bit of fun there. But GDM Tay did disqualify himself on his way to the line. A couple of cars a bit further back. Viperize complaining of that group more towards the back, looking to really try and make sure that those cars at the front have cold tires. Viperize, though, pulled up very nicely to that grid. Dachal pulling up with a little bit more of a look at that inside run. Of course, we're waiting on the likes of Guardian and Oreo to pull up to the back of the grid. So it'll be the McLaren and the Ferrari last to park up. So Oreo will get set, and then we will go racing here at Silverstone. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's weird. 5 red lights. Drive-through for Oreo, and we are underway. Stratting as well with a jump start, but we are underway here. A big start from Speedy Gunner, who is going to have to back off, and Viperize holds that lead into turn 1. It's Dachal in second. Rostamol as well with a jump start, so potentially a bit of a visual bug, as you could hear double lights in the background with Speedy Gunner jumping up the order. Strachosaur, and I believe Strachosaur certainly coming together with somebody he had to take to the grass. His ERS actually potentially still off. There's a number of drivers up in the background. That's a Williams spun in the background. That's M. Requiem. But up in the lead, it is Viperize cleanly getting away. His teammate Stratton, of course, getting that drive-through penalty, which is severely going to hurt his chances at any semblance of points. Let's see what happens here. Stratton, though, looking to potentially give his teammate some help, pulling up right to the back of Dachal. 6/10 the gap between P1 and P2. Of course, Ozan right there in the background, as well as a number of drivers. Kendricks and Formula Jonah swapping places as they go through Cops for 10th. You could potentially see them a little bit off in the distance. Of course, the pack's starting to spread out a little bit. It's really these top 8 starting to make a bit of a breakaway. And if Strakasaur and Kendricks aren't careful, this breakaway could become a runaway pack very easily. But those mediums certainly in a good spot off the start. Stratton, meanwhile, is going to immediately go to serve that drive-through penalty. He will get it slowed down, though. But that will allow Ozan to start to make that run. So start of lap 2, a bit of almost looking like 3 wide briefly behind as well, as the McLaren of Breakfast King looking to make a move, but Speedy Gunner in the 4th. Alcoholic Husky with a great start. He's up into P5. Here in the early stages, Rostamol also serving that drive-through penalty. Of course, they'll be out pretty far behind the rest of the pack. But Dachal now going to have DRS advantage. Viperize looking to break that toe. Here comes the V-Carb. Is he going to look to make the move? He'll take a peek to the outside a little bit late, but not going to quite have the space to get that move done. Meanwhile, it's the front 3 starting to make a bit of a breakaway as the Red Bull's potentially squabbling a little bit. And that gap now at 2.5 between P3 and P4. And Alcoholic Husky moves up. Here comes Tachal looking for a move around the outside of Stratting through Cops. They're going to remain side by side as they continue here into Maggots and Beckett's. Is anybody going to yield? No, they're actually going to go side by side. Tachal manages to make the move work. Viperize a little bit compromised through that second part of Maggots and Beckett's, and Tachal takes the lead of the race here on lap 2, but that does give Viperize the assistance of DRS down the back straight. Here comes Ozan as well. Here comes Viperize to the inside now into this right-hander, and Viperize retakes the lead before the end of lap 2. Dachal now looking to the inside. Is he looking to make that move back? He'll look down the inside. Ozan looks outside. Dachal makes that move stick. Can he hold on to it through traction? Ozan looking to find a way around Viperize. He'll look around the outside. He'll look around the outside of Dachal too, but boxed in as he goes as we start lap 3. And this fight going to get more and more interesting as Viperize and Ozan now side by side as we make our way down into turn number 3 once again. Of course, Husky, Speedy, and really all the way back to Guardian Knight, who's made a great start. He's to get up to P10. All now in a train, so the top 10, trying to make a bit of a good breakaway. Ozan, of course, looking to make a move past Viperize, who's going to defend that inside from Ozan. Late on the brakes. Big send from Viperize there. Dachal, though, able to hold on with a little bit more pace around the outside. Ozan now looking to the inside. Viperize looking to potentially get that cutback done on Dachal. He's gets a really strong exit. Going to be dumping ERS there. He looks to the outside. A little bit of a wiggle, though, as they make the run into Cops. Here comes Alcoholic Husky looking to make that move. Not quite going to be able to pull away as Dachal pulls a little bit of a gap. Alcoholic Husky and Speedy Gunner, the 2 Red Bulls, looking to chase down this 3-pack, and they have very successfully. But now, is this a chance for a driver here to pull away? Of course, Viperize still sitting in that DRS train of Dachal up ahead. Ozan looking to make that move around the outside of Viperize. Viperize, though, retains that inside. Can he hold on to that position? Ozan manages to find a way through. So now it's Ozan up into second here on lap number 3. Breakfast King as well, finding a space down the inside of Speedy Gunner, able to utilize the grip of those softs to find a way past Speedy Gunner, so that'll break up the potential teamwork of the 2 Red Bulls. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, up in 8th. He's raced pretty solidly in these early stages, but Dachal finally managed to hold onto that lead for a full lap. Of course, Ozan going to start piling on the pressure now. And so now what can Ozan do to try and retake this lead? Of course, DRS advantage, 2/10 is the gap, and closing 10.5. Dachal going to move back to the racing line, though, defends it nicely. Of course, we're going to run into Cops. Speedy Gunner, Alcoholic Husky and Viperize, meanwhile, side by side now. So it's Alcoholic looking to utilize those soft tires before they start to run out of grip. Of course, in the run down to Cops now, Dachal still holds it. Alcoholic takes a peek at that move, thinks better of it, tucks back in, and so we'll be single file once again now. 3 Maggots and Beckett's. It's Dachal with about a 3/10 gap back to Ozan, which may not be enough. It'll really depend on these exits. And Ozan and Dachal about with equal exits, but DRS advantage now on the back of the Alpine, who's now going to look to the outside. He's going to swing that move around the outside, and by the time they get into the braking zone, it'll be Ozan who takes the lead for Alpine. Can Dachal fight it back like we saw him do with Viperize. He'll look to the outside, closed off a little bit late there, maybe from Ozan, but seemingly no damage done, so all good. And this pack also starting to make a bit of a breakaway from Viperize, who started to lose time as Husky starts to battle with him. Husky actually looking to the inside of Viperize as they briefly go side by side, but Husky, Alcoholic has to back out. And so is this a chance for Ozan and Dachal to maybe start to make a bit of a breakaway here at the front? We'll have to see if Viperize has DRS here much better through that slower section, but potentially a little bit more downforce. And it does mean that Viperize does not have DRS advantage now. So that gap has been broken from Dachal and Ozan. So will those two drivers, sitting first and second, of course started second and third on the grid, take this opportunity to try and make a bit of a breakaway? We'll have to see if they can hold, excuse me, if they can hold that advantage through Maggots and Beckett. Certainly would be a challenge to do so, depending on how much downforce Viperize has on that car, but seemingly breaking away. Yellow flags, it is for Guardian Knight, having a spin down at Cop, so he'll drop down into P14. And of course, lap number 5, very tight. Here comes Kendricks looking to the outside of Speedy Gunner. Speedy, though, late on the brakes. Can he make that move down? A little bit of a twitch there from Speedy means he is going to lose position. So he'll drop down into P7, but potentially looking to just stick with this pack, not have any incidents as of right now, and give him the best chance later on into the race. But as the start of lap 6, it's actually Dachal who retakes the lead. Viperize, meanwhile, closing back up. Guardian Knight did leave the session, so if you'll excuse me for one brief second, I'll try to get him back in the game. Apologies for this, as I can see all the cars pulling out on to that first DRS straight. Ozan, though, holding back for right now 3/10 of the gap. Viperize has also managed to close up Strakosaur and Speedy Gunner, swapping places. Ozan actually finding a way past Dachal, so a bit of a mistake from the V-Carb driver, who I thought still had the lead. But perhaps a little bit of gamesmanship going on between the two, as Dachal perhaps just wants that DRS, wants that clean air through the bulk of the lap, and is okay getting that dirty air through Cops, through Maggots and Beckett's, so that way he can let those tires cool down for the rest of the lap. But of course, here they are, looking for that exit. It's a stronger exit for Dachal, who closes that gap down to 3/10. Ozan going to defend the inside, forces Dachal to go to the outside. But by the time they get into the braking zone, it's comfortable for the V-Carb to swing past and retake that lead here on lap number 6. Kendricks and Breakfast King, meanwhile, battling side by side. Kendricks actually having to take avoiding action and going off circuit. Is going to have to jump off and will still be comfortable. So now Alcoholic Husky can be put under threat. But it's really just a group of these now top 9. After Guardian Knight fell off the tail of this pack. Of course, you've got Semi Yildiz there looking to make chase. Breakfast King actually almost finding a way past Alcoholic there. They're going to battle side by side here through the twisty part of Sector 1. It's a great move there from Breakfast King to get that done. He's going to have DRS as well, so he'll have a chance to get some moves done. Kendricks and Alcoholic now side by side, and Kendricks able to get that move done for Alpine. He's going to slide that car right in front of Alcoholic, who's now going to drop down to P6, but certainly still in this fight. This is also a chance for those medium tire runners to try and make a bit of a breakaway. Dachal still holds the lead. This time he will hold that lead through Cops for the 7th time today. Yellow flag. That's for Oreo African down in 18th, who just after that drive-through is just kind of out of the fight. So is going to be hoping for a safety car. Bit wide from Viperize in the background. We haven't seen a track limits penalty yet. As yellow flag, that is for Yigit. So he'll drop down the order, down through Cops. And of course, that chase pack still on the back of Viperize, who has lost a little bit of time to Ozan ahead. A little bit of a twitch there from our leader. As we start lap number 8 and approach that 3rd way mark, we can take a chance to look at some of the position gains. Kendricks, of course, a big winner. We see him managed to pull off some really nice moves with race I cannot speak. We see him manage to pull off some really nice racecraft. He's up 7 spots. Breakfast King as well, up 5. Speedy Gunner and Strachosaur swapping places, and that's Speedy Gunner going around as they went side by side. So Speedy Gunner, who was having a pretty solid race, is now going to fall down to the fringes of the points and is going to fall off that chase pack. So definitely a big loss from him. He was going to be under threat from Husky Gaming as they battle down the street, but Formula Jonah and Strachosaur now battling side by side. As I was saying, Kendrick's up 8 spots, Breakfast King up 4. So those are big gainers, and Arstretting after that drive-through down 10. Speedy Gunner after that spin down 5, but certainly still with a chance to recover. So we certainly hope to see him manage to pull that gap back. Meanwhile, up the front, it is now a real 3-horse race up at the front, or it's becoming that, as Dachal, Ozan, and Viperize start to pull a bit of a breakaway. So those mediums starting to come into life of their own. And the top 3 drivers managing to hold off the charging soft tire runners for long enough to give themselves the opportunity to bridge that gap. Of course, it'll be very interesting to see pit strategy here as soft tire runners have that opportunity at the undercut. So we'll have to see how that goes for Stratting in 13th, looking to make that recovery. But certainly been an eventful race so far. A lot of side-by-side battles and seemingly clean enough. Yellow flags, that's for the V-carb of JDM Tay spinning out of the final corner. Been able to recover that car okay, so no safety car apparently. Ozan and Dachal, meanwhile, swapping places once again. Ozan likely getting that done with DRS assistance. So Ozan now the one with clean air. Dachal, no, under threat from Viperize. Guardian Knight retiring from the session. So he is out. That's our first retirement. That is on track, but shouldn't be any issue. As Dachal falls back into 3rd, so it's going to be Viperize and Ozan now with a chance to go at it. So Viperize potentially taking a couple laps to really get that battery situation under control. Big slide there from Ozan as we come to the end of the SS section. That's going to allow Viperize a load of pace and a head of steam as he'll come by. Dachal as well, looking to make that move, trying to make it 2-1. Viperize looking to defend it, and he is going to be braver on the brakes, managed to hold that off. So Viperize now, our pole sitter, retakes the lead here on lap number 9. Kendricks, meanwhile, has taken advantage of that delay to pull up closer to the fight. M. Requiem, I believe, having a spin there through turn 1. Semi Yildiz, meanwhile, first to dive into the pits of the soft tire runners. He does get a pit lane speeding penalty. I assume opting for the hard tires here should be the Mercedes. He's also getting a front wing change because of damage that he sustained earlier in that lap, so he'll lose a bit of time, but does opt for that hard compound. So Semi Yildiz going to the end of the race, but it's Viperize back in the lead. Dachal has managed to get himself up into P2. Getting past Ozan when we were waiting there. JDM Tay also opting to dive into the pits, likely for a set of mediums to go to the end. But it's Viperize with a half a second advantage. Kendricks, meanwhile, has managed to, I think, find new life with those soft tires, as he's managed to close that gap to the cars in front to down to just about a second. So we'll see if them battling ahead will manage to let him close up Ozan with another mistake. So he's potentially starting to feel the wear of those medium tires, perhaps regretting sitting behind Dachal for so long. And this has very quickly become a 4-car race for the lead. Here comes Dachal, looking to the outside of Viperize, should get that move done fairly comfortably. By the time they get to the braking zone, it will be Dachal retaking the lead here on lap number 10. Algal Lukoski, meanwhile, finding his way back past Breakfast King, though he is the first recipient of a 3-second time penalty. So we've got a couple of battles starting to form now. It's really going to be these front 4, as that's a spin from the Williams of M. Requiem, who is lapped down now and almost certainly out of the race. So we'll have to see what happens there. But actually, Dachal going a little bit deep there. Viperize looked to take advantage, but now potentially compromised as Mercedes spun through Maggots and Beckett's. Dachal actually disconnected from the session. So that could be why Viperize had to back up a little bit, as I'll try to get him back in too, as we'll want our race leader back in for sure. Just need to find him. Certainly looking for you. You don't appear to be online. I don't see him as online, so I'll give it a second. Actually, I can do this as well. No, I haven't. I should have him added. Why can I not see him? Apologize again if we're missing a little bit of the action. Just trying to get our driver back in. Shale. Actually, he is back, so we did manage to get him back in the race, but that does mean Viper Eyes now has to try and fend off the two Alpines as we come across the line to start lap number 12. Kendrick's, of course, opting to stay out, as does most of the drivers in that chase pack. Hopefully we do see Dachal taking back over control of his car before too much longer. But that does allow the likes of Alcoholic, of Breakfast King, of Strachosaur, of Jonah to potentially grab some extra points in that chase pack. Yellow flag in Sector 2, that's for the Mercedes of Semi-Yield is. Those hard tires just not working, and not the tire to switch to as he continues to fall back. So it certainly will be very interesting to see the stop strategy now, as that pit lane window is certainly open, especially for those soft tire runners at the end of this lap. But Viper Eyes comfortably holding the lead, no safety cars yet. So we'll have to see if anybody is good on fuel. Kendricks is very down on fuel. Semi-Yield will be a retirement in the pit lane. Yeah, Kendricks overall lap short on fuel. He'll have to make up a lot, potentially make a run at it. Dachal as well, very down on fuel. He looks to be almost 2 laps down and expecting a safety car. He is back in the game at least, but is now 3 seconds adrift of the leaders. Meanwhile, from these front runners, Alkalikoski is going to be our first driver to dive into the pit lane on the soft tire compound. Breakfast King is going to follow him. And this is almost certainly for the medium compounded tires. Breakfast King as well, become very comfortable on fuel. Speedy Gunner and, what is that, one of the Williams back markers. Our ghosted Dachal actually retires from the session as he disconnected again. So Dachal had a great race, so definitely disappointing to see the V-Carb driver retire. And I think that's just a bug that happens when you disconnect sometimes, where the game will retire you from the session. So definitely disappointing to see Dachal drop out of this race. But he certainly should be happy with how he was performing. He was right up there, has led the most laps of this race. But now it's a battle between the Aston and the Alpine. Battle of the A's and Viper Eyes. Definitely in a bit of a pickle here, as both Alpines right up on him, and on alternate strategies, so either could have a really good shot at taking the fight to him. And they can also cover off that strategy. The green machine decides to go for it, but here comes Ozan down the straight. Kendrick on the outside as well. The Alpine's going to split Viper Eyes right down the middle. Kendrick's going to look to hold on to the lead. Viper Eyes are looking to box Ozan out. Ozan tried to dive for the pit lane. Kendrick's did. So that's going to slow down both Ozan and Viper Eyes a little bit. And so will be Ozan holding on to the lead as we start lap number 14. Kendricks, of course, dives into the pit, so we'll have to see where he comes out. Alcoholic, meanwhile, must have had some sort of wing damage there that he had to have fixed, or has made a mistake coming out of the pits, as he's dropped a lot of time to Breakfast King. So certainly some sort of mistake there. Yellow flag, that's for the Williams Van Requiem, who at this point may as well just retire. But Kendricks will come out in 7th, so comfortably ahead of Breakfast King, as he receives a 3-second time penalty. As we jump up to the front, it is Ozan leading the way by half a second over Viper Eyes. I'd expect we'd see both cars coming into the pits in the next couple of laps for a fresh set of tires, but both drivers pushing very, very hard, even as those mediums continue to age. So how much of an undercut can Kendricks pull off? We saw he had a lot of pace, but fuel is going to be an issue for the Williams. He's managed to save a lap, but he's going to need to save a lot more if he wants to make it to the end of this race. DRS for Viperize. He's going to look to the inside, get that move done. It is going to leave him to run a little bit wide, so Ozan going to have that inside and have that opportunity to dive into the pits, which he will take. He'll stay on board, make sure he can get that car stopped. He will. So we'll jump to Kendricks, see where he comes out of the pits. Of course, coming down onto the back straight now. Strakasaur, of course, is still out on the soft tire compound. Formula Jonah still out on his hard set. Stratting will dive into the pits for his mandatory stop. Of course, after having to serve that drive-through, he lost a lot of time. This undercut looking to be very valuable now for Kendricks. His teammate, of course, still making his way out of the pit lane. He does have those tires changed. Where will his teammate shoot out? There goes Kendricks. His teammate nowhere nearby, really. You can actually a little bit closer than I thought. But Kendricks picking up 2 seconds on that stop. And at least provisionally is your new leader. Of course, Kendricks does have the disadvantage on being on the wrong tires. M. Requiem disqualified from the session for driving the wrong way. So looking at potentially a race ban from that, as it takes talent to be disqualified from the session. We'll of course have to wait and see. So Viperize now retains the lead. Strakasaur and Formula Jonah, at least in the battle for P2 on track, battling hard through Maggots and Beckett's. Of course, Formula Jonah with a bit of a compound advantage here at this stage of the race. He's actually going to look around the outside of the Mercedes and is going to have DRS advantage, so he should get that moved on fairly comfortably. So here they come. M. Requiem gonna retire, actually show up as retired from the session. Viperize with a big tip penalty. That's 10 seconds for speeding in the pits. So a big loss there from the Aston Martin, which is almost certainly gonna put him out of contention. Strakasaur, meanwhile, will dive in the pits. So your new leader on track is gonna be Formula Jonah. Viperize not getting his pit limiter to work, so didn't get slowed down, or so perhaps got slowed down. Tried to re-accelerate as he back out, but didn't manage to time it right. And so he'll be a little bit behind. Kendricks, of course, coming out of the pit lane. Where will Ozan come out in comparison to Viperize, who, of course, is going to want to still battle, but is on the hard compound with 10 laps to go. So, again, I think getting that strategy wrong there. But actually striding with a very good day. He's up into 7th. But it is Kendricks currently leading the way on track. And we saw how those mediums were rolling, especially late on in the session. So it's going to really come down to Kendricks versus Ozan in these closing stages. So, of course, those mediums of Kendricks going to be now probably up to temperature, which is really good for him, as he has passed that stage where it'll be awkward. But towards the end of the race, those mediums should be the quicker tire before those softs get effectively second wind. Akolikuski getting an additional 3-second time penalty as this field gotten really, really spread out. We continue to battle, but it's going to be Alpines leading the way. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, still electing to stay out on those medium compound tires as Ozan sets a new fast lap of 129.5. But I think Formula Jonah looking to just play that long game here and try and hold out for a safety car or some sort of big incident. Try and take advantage of that quicker stop and the fresher tires, especially if they still have life. Here comes Ozan around the outside. He'll comfortably take the lead with DRS assistance. Kendrick's not going to fight him too hard and just really look to try and stick with them here on lap number 17. Of course, if you're still interested in potentially taking part in this F1 24 action, you do have 7 rounds remaining in this season and should have another season or two in this game cycle. So if that's something that you might be interested in, definitely feel free to let us know, and we'd be happy to get you set up with an instant invite link. Yigit will retire from the session, so that's our 5th DNF. Luckily, none of that has been due to on-track incidents. That's just all been by decision. Formula Jonah, though, will decide to dive into the pits. Will look to get those soft tires slapped on. Be interesting to see where he comes out, but that will allow Ozan to retake the lead here as we start into lap number 18. Husky Gaming has left the session, meanwhile, so I'll try to get him back in, but connection issues up and down the field. So definitely disappointing to see. Rostamel receives a 3-second time penalty. Formula Jonah, meanwhile, comes out in 7th, so will come out ahead of Speedy Gunner. And likely with that additional tire life, he might have a chance to go after Stratting or Strakasaur. Stratting, who has made an excellent recovery drive. Of course, I'll try to get Husky back in again, as he seems to be struggling a little bit to get back in. So there's an extra invite for the Kick Sour driver, who of course currently sits in 9th. Alcoholic, meanwhile, diving into box. He'll sacrifice a points scoring position, but up in the front, it's the battle of the Alpines. Kendrick's really just content to sit in that DRS train of his teammate, conserve fuel, as he's actually brought that fuel total up very nicely to be about even on fuel. So he's very comfortable and will have a much lighter car than Ozan. So Kendrick has done a really good job at saving fuel in this second stint. Meanwhile, everybody behind him racing fairly comfortably. Strakasaur a bit light on fuel. Here comes Stratting on the outside, who's also going to be pushing the limits on fuel. Formula Jonah pulled up to the back, and so now we got a big fight underway for 5th, and very tight there. Strakasaur, I think, looking down the inside and had a little bit of a lockup, but Speedy Gunner and Jonah are there. So I'll have to see what happens. Well, apologies, I think. I don't know if we have managed to get Husky Gaming back in. He still is not showing his back as it stands. Hopefully he can get back in. Well, of course, we'll have to wait and see. There he is back. But yeah, Stratton, great recovery drive from him after having that drive where he's up in 5th. And then Kendricks, I think, just still content to really save fuel, save those medium compound tires, and potentially have a chance at going and winning this race. But it's a great day for Alpine, great day for Aston Martin as well. Of course, Stratting and Viperize going to be wishing that they had a little bit of a better result, considering they had a better starting position. But of course, drive-through early from Stratting and that speeding penalty from Viperize ended up being those nails in the coffin. So we'll have to see what happens here. A little bit of a bobble over that sausage curb from Kendricks as Formula Jonah takes 5th place away from Stratting. See LSR Founder making his way up the field. Of course, this also, now that the pack is quieted down a little bit, gives us another chance to look at position gain. Kendricks, I think, certainly in the running for driver of the day with those 10 positions gained. Still within DRS range of his teammate as well, so still a good chance to utilize those medium compound tires. So I think Ozan, having less cars to battle, has certainly allowed him to hold on to those softs better than those mediums potentially. Breakfast King and Formula Jonah, meanwhile, up 5 spots each. So very comfortable days from them, as well as a chance for Breakfast King especially, at a podium finish due to Viperize's 10-second time penalty. They've had great races. Are Stratting as well, I think, certainly in the running for driver of the day. Of course, wouldn't show by his position gain as he's down 3, but that's after having to serve that drive-through penalty for jumping the start back on lap number 1, which he opted to serve, and then has just climbed his way back up the field, slowly but surely, and has turned into a solid race for himself to be able to pick up points in a race where we've seen no safety cars, a couple yellow flags here and there, but really only for spins, and no major crashes, at least that I've caught on stream. So here comes Stratting now down the inside of Jonah. as the two green teams continue to fight. Strakosaur and Speedy Gunner, of course, waiting there in the background, trying to get those moves done. Jonah taking a look to that inside, thinking better of it, though. But Jonah is still in a really good spot with those still relatively fresh, soft tires, potentially hold on to 5th or more, depending on the pace that Viperize keeps. But lap 21 here, so 5 to go next time we cross the line, and it's about an 8/10 gap from Ozan back to Kendricks. So both drivers now good on fuel, so when does either driver decide to drop the hammer? Of course, I wouldn't expect team orders here, though it could certainly be possible, and I think Kendricks happy to play that team game as it suits him, especially considering what his fuel situation was looking like as we hit that pit stop window, being over a lap down on fuel. Of course, making our way through Maggots and Beckett's that gap at about 3/4 of a second, where it's been for the past couple laps, and I think Kendricks just looking to hold off, especially if you push hard and do a lot of engine braking around a lap here at Silverstone. You're going to lose a couple of tenths of your fuel delta a lap, especially over the course of a 26-lap race. You're going to probably want about 3/4 of a lap of extra fuel if you were to just kind of go full push for full green flag running. But I was saying, getting really good exits there. Formula Jonah and R-Stratting once again swapping places. There is going to be a bit of a wheel bang there, as I think Formula Jonah a bit of understeer here, and Stratting not expecting it. That's going to allow Strakosaur through, and so they're going to go 2x2 here between Speedy, Strakosaur, Stratting, and Formula Jonah. It's going to be Jonah 5th, Strako 6th, Stratting 7th, Speedy Gunner 8th here at the start of lap number 22. So 5 to go for these four. And Speedy and Stratting looking to get it moved on. Here comes Speedy down the inside. Stratting able to hold on for the moment. Little bit of contact there, but seemingly comfortable as attempted cutback. Stratting, meanwhile, able to hold off the charge of Speedy Gunner as they come down the back straight. Kendricks, though, with a big mistake. That has allowed Ozan to pull away as we were watching that fight for 5th place. And that could be the decider now that Kendricks has fallen out of DRS range of Ozan, who should now be able to pretty comfortably bring that Alpine home with 5 to go. Though those soft tires could still fall off at this point. But we'll have to wait and see as this race continues. Meanwhile, we'll jump back to that battle for 5th as we come up to the DRS zone once again. Formula Jonah looking very comfortable, immediately looking to try and break that toe. Here comes Strakosaur now on a charge. Of course, he's had the chance to hold off on that ERS a little bit, but not a lot of top speed on that Mercedes as he comes down that back straight, a little bit wide as well, so potentially getting a track limits warning to boot. Stratting with a late move down the inside. Bit ambitious there from him. Strakosaur gets a 3-second time penalty for track limits. So Stratting able to get back past Strakosaur. Oh, and it's a big crash! I think Stratting was trying to give that position back, and I don't know quite what happened there, but Stratting ending up in the wall. I think Stratting was trying to apologize there, but Strakosaur didn't know it and continued to battle hard. But Stratting now in the wall and with some big damage. So that's going to make him fall right down the order. And just as I was saying, he is potentially in the running for driver of the day with that recovery drive. He's got big damage and might actually fall out of the points if he's not too careful, as that right side of his front wing is massively busted. And that, of course, was at the start of the lap, so he's got a lot of lap left to go to try and hold on to that front wing and potentially get it changed. But he'd have to, of course, make a charge back at the likes of JDMT if he wants to finish up in the points. So definitely disappointing to see from him. Not sure entirely what happened between him and Strakosaur, but that, of course, works to the benefit of Formula Jonah. Of course, a number of drivers now with penalties, I think, trying to stay out of the way of that. Viper has, of course, 13 seconds up to now. So that battle with Jonah certainly becomes effectively 4th. Husky Gaming manages to get past R-Stratting, who is just kind of fallen further and further back. But up in the front, Ozan now with 3 to go. 3.5 seconds is the gap. Great drive from him. Of course, was battling hard with T'Chall, who sadly disconnected, and of course his AI retired, which is always disappointing when you see that happen. But of course, a bunch of battles. Really, that was the first big incident that I've caught between two drivers. Not entirely sure what happened. Whether it was Strakasaur having a little bit of a twitch there, just being a little bit jumpy, thinking, especially after Stratting was making that move down the inside, that he was trying to get it done. Of course, Stratting is going to have to dive into the pits, get that front wing change. We'll have a chance to go after JDMT and potentially deny Ozan a shot at fastest lap of the race. Ozan now comfortably pulling away from Kendricks. That gap now up to 4 seconds. And that should be all she wrote here in Silverstone. Of course, back starting to get spread out a little bit. The only battle on track really right now is this battle for 6 between Speedy Gunner and Strakasaur. Of course, we've seen Red Bull and Mercedes battle a number of times here at Silverstone before. Here comes Strakasaur around the outside. He'll get that move done. Of course, both drivers with 3-second time penalties. But shouldn't be at risk of losing positions other than to each other. Speedy now looking around the outside. Not going to get that done. Strako going to be a bit braver on the brakes and have that line. So I'll see if Speedy can manage to find a way back through. So we'll stay on board with this battle as it continues. But yes, Stratting, of course, down there in 12th, definitely disappointing to see. So he had a very strong race up to that point. And of course, that'll probably go to Steward's review. As will a number of incidents. So the results here on track are likely to be the official ones. Lap 25 of 26, so just a lap and a half left to go for Ozan as Speedy finds a way past Strakasaur. And swap over to that leader metric as well, so that we can see exactly where the times should come in at the end of this race. And actually, Formula Jonah does have some work to do if he wants a chance at P4. Still certainly in the works. Here comes Viperize actually on the back of Kendricks. So I think the Aston Martin, despite having those couple of mistakes resulting in those time penalties, still looking to get it done. Viperize down the inside on those hard compound tires, which will finally come into their own in this late stage. As you start the final laps, it'll be Viperize up into P2, looking to try and make a breakaway and secure at least that P4 for himself. Breakfast King there in the background. Solid race from the McLaren driver. A pretty quiet second half from everybody. Yellow flags. That is for, I believe, Rostamole with a mistake through Cops. So certainly gives him that shot there. But it's Ozan now with a comfortable lead, 4 seconds back to the Aston Martin of Viperize despite the penalties. And, started third, stayed in that fight, managed that first stint very nicely, and just pulled that pit stop at the right time, was on the right strategy, picked that pit window right, and especially with the assistance of those soft tires in clearer air than when he was battling, managed to hold on to those tires much nicer as we saw a number of slides, a number of near mistakes from the Alpine, but of course coming through Maggots and Beckett's for the final time. Stratting, of course, sets a new first lap of the race, takes that honor away from Ozan as it stands, with just a couple of corners left to go. Yellow flag behind. Actually, Kendricks, I think, is out of fuel. Kendricks is out of fuel behind, so we'll jump back to that, as that was what those yellow flags were for. But Ozan coming around the final couple of corners, power, got to put the power down now, and it'll be Ozan winning in Silverstone. Great drive from him. Viperize will cross the line in second, at least across the line. It'll be Breakfast King coming across the line, though, to finish in P2. Kendricks running out of fuel on the way to the line. He'll manage to beat Formula Jonah to the line, so he'll still finish on the podium in third and ahead of Viperize, though not by much. Formula Jonah ends up in fifth. Strakasaur managed to beat Speedy Gunner to the line to finish sixth in a bang-bang finish. Husky Gaming will come across the line to finish eighth. JDMT should come across the line to finish ninth, and Rostamole should round out that top 10. Of course, we'll still have Alcoholic and Stratting battling their way to the line as well, but it'll be 11th and 12th for the pair of them. as they make their way through the final couple of corners. Of course, fast lap honors will go to our Stratting, at least in the record books. But by finishing P11, won't pick up any positions. Stratting in 11th, Alcoholic in 12th, and Oreo will be last across the line in 13th. But of course, congratulations to Ozan. A 1-3 for Alpine, as Kendrick's not quite saving fuel quite as well as I had thought initially. As it turns out, he ran out, but will still get driver of the day after finishing P3. But of course, congratulations to Ozan, to a great result from him. But yeah, it's Ozan taking 25 points in P1. It's the American up Breakfast King coming from 9th on the grid to finish in 2nd, and Kendrick coming from 12th to finish in 3rd. Viperize, of course, having a decent enough drive despite having those penalties. Starting on pole, does finish in 4th. Formula Jonah with a great drive as well, picking up 5 spots to finish 5th. Strakosaur, Speedy Gunner, Husky, JDM Tay, and Rostamole will round out your top 10. Of course, I'll just grab all of our incidents. But yeah, a number of 3 jump starters, of course, Stratting, Rostamole, and African to start the race. But plenty of incidents throughout, a couple of collisions here and there, but not too much. Good to see a clean race, good to see a race without safety cars, and hope you'll join us next week for some more Group 2 league racing action. This one will be full qualifying at Austria, so be sure to tune in for that, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one, and have a good week.